So etudes can address different kinds of problems. As a pianist, we have only 2 hands and 10 fingers, but there are 88 keys, and we have to be able to manipulate all those. So there are many aspects. There's big tone, try to get a really big tone for singing quality. And then technically, there are like double thirds, there are runs like this, there are arpeggios, and all kinds of other technical problems. So there are many exercises being written just to develop the fingers, to make them all even, because our fingers are not all equal. Usually the 4th and 5th fingers are very weak. The 1st and the 3rd are the strongest. So we have to exercise the 4th and 5th to make them equal, so we can play things like this and not be so obvious that our outer fingers are weak. So that's the value of the etude. Now, the value to me, as I see it personally, of playing at Paco Park is that though the audience itself there is quite small, maybe 150, at most 180, and that's small in relation to Luneta Park and in relation to gyms and other big auditoriums that I have played in. So Paco Park to me is a small number of audience. The advantage here is that all performances were televised and shown over and over and over again everywhere, all over the country. So there we got the multiplier factor, and then we had many people again to watch this kind of music. The next topic I have for you is about the Cebu Music Symphony Orchestra. In the year 1990, I was at a crossroads in my life. I had reached a certain level, as you can see by some of these performances, quite high, maybe not just adequate, but really pretty good, if I may say so myself. And I started thinking about Cebu. I started asking myself, what has come out of my province, Cebu, where I grew up and where I got my basic education from my mother. I had been married for almost 30 years, and I started looking at my back behind me. And no Ingrid had come, no pianist, no violinist of national caliber, no singer, no other instrumentalist. In other words, nobody in the classical field. And I tried to analyze the problem. I figured that it was because of lack of teachers, lack of tutors. We didn't have any good teacher in those fields who would come and develop students around them. If we had had a very good piano pedagogue who would have sacrificed and established himself or herself in Cebu, he or she could have developed scholars around and produced 10, 20, 25 good pianists. If we had had one very good violinist, he could have done the same, and so on. One good cellist, and then we would have eventually had very good musicians. But like I'm telling you, I'm not being repetitive, but there was just nothing, nobody at that time. So, as I said earlier, as one comes into later years, one tries to see what one can do to give back, to help others, to help the youth, to help one's community, to help one's country if possible. I tried to see what I could do. Now, my mother was a pianist and she had a piano school, but after I graduated, after she made me graduate, maybe she probably felt she wasn't going to try so hard anymore for others. So she had her assistant teachers, the studio kept going on, but we were not really producing very good students. So even that wasn't going very well. It's just okay, just normal. But for me, that's not good enough. Normal is not good enough. So I tried to figure out what does Cebu really need and what can we do. So to me, the answer said to try for an orchestra. Of course, even the thought is humongous because an orchestra means you have to deal with at least 20 kinds of instruments. So many kinds of strings, violin, viola, cello, bass, so many kinds of winds. You have flute, clarinet, oboe, bassoon. so many kinds of brass, trumpet, trombone, tuba, so many kinds of percussion, and putting all this together. And so where was one to start? And in the first place, there was no footprint or blueprint for me to follow. If ever I decided on doing that, I had to figure out everything by myself and implement everything myself and find ways and means of doing it. It took me 1 year to decide whether I would do it or not, because then I told myself, if I do it, if I take on this responsibility of trying to do something, it means I cannot play piano as a pianist, as I am or as I was at that time. I felt that I had to give full commitment if I took on that task. And then I figured out this one will take at least 10 years. Because if you study in elementary school, if your parents send you and you're lucky enough to have basic piano or violin education through elementary school years up to high school, and you are talented enough and dedicated and really wish music to be your career, then you go to Manila to go to a conservatory or college of music, and hopefully in 4 years of intensive college study, you can achieve a Bachelor of Music degree in something. Just like you study any other degree, Bachelor of Arts, 4 years, Bachelor of Engineering, 4 years to become an engineer, lawyer, maybe will take a little more, 3 years plus 2 years. Of course, medicine takes much longer, but a normal career in college will give you a degree in 4 years. So if you count those 4 years plus the years that went before it for music, let's say 4 years and 2 years beginning, I estimated by myself that 10-year program could possibly achieve what I was dreaming about. So I conceptualized a 10-year music orchestra development program. I made it 1991 to the year 2000. So I said 1995, I must have a Cebu Youth Symphony Orchestra as launch. No two ways about it. Year 2000, this must evolve as an orchestra, like Manila Orchestra, that level. No two ways about it. And I am of the belief that everything, anything one does or one thinks of, must have a beginning and an end. So to me, this project had to have a beginning, and I just invented for myself the timing of it. Said, okay, 10 years, is it finished or not? Pass your papers. That's what our teachers told us in school when we were small, right? You do an exam, and they say, okay, finished or not? Pass your papers. So I said, I can sacrifice for 10 years. I will give every ounce of my blood and energy and everything. And for me, the biggest personal sacrifice was not to play the piano as a concert pianist. Because I felt that if I continue to play, even practicing 2 hours a day is nothing. And then, but 2 hours a day taken away from the project of the orchestra development would mean a lot. So actually, I was working something like 20 hours a day for that project for 10 years. Not being a pianist, but playing piano only as part of the orchestra. So when I started, I was accompanying Twinkle Twinkle Little Star with a violin teacher like this and all. So I was supervising. I was not teaching, but I was organizing all the teachers and taking care of all the scholars. And by the way, this development program was on a full scholarship basis. Full as in full, everything. Tuition, we even gave them clothes, all the music they needed, we gave them meals, allowances, everything. And this I did under the aegis of our family foundation, Sala Foundation, which we named after my parents, Salvador and Pilar Sala. And for this, I am very, very grateful that I had this opportunity and this privilege through our family's help to be able to have gone on with this program. So, in 1995, October, we launched the Cebu Youth Symphony. 3 years later, 1998 was the Centennial of our country, the 100 years of independence from June 12, 1898. So June 12, 1998, 100 years later, our whole country was doing a lot of celebrations, a lot of programs all over the islands, all over the provinces. We made one big celebration for the Cebu Youth Symphony. I asked the owner of the Waterfront Hotel if he could give us his ballroom for 2 days, June 11, June 12, capacity 5,000, audience and inside. He readily gave it, and we were chosen by the government television channel to be one of the programs from all over the country to be featured for an hour all over the country. So we would like to show you just excerpts because, as I said, that's all we can show you. This is from the 1998 CYSO, Cebu Youth Symphony Orchestra, Centennial program at Cebu Waterfront.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Cebu Youth Symphony Orchestra with Professor Flores conducting Bayan Ko.
We are truly grateful that circumstances have permitted us to be together on this momentous occasion tonight, to feel one in spirit, to reminisce, safeguard, and enjoy through glorious music what our national heroes fought for 100 years ago, and to prepare to make our own contributions for the next generations. Your very presence here tonight reaffirms our concerted efforts towards the attainment of mutual goals that will engender global goodwill, making boundaries disappear, destinies cross, and aspirations intermingle.